Last year, India became the first country to land a spacecraft on the moon's south pole. Now, the Chandrayaan-3 mission was accomplished for less than half the cost of a Hollywood blockbuster. It was a big leap for India's space missions. And what's the next leap going to be? How's India going to be talking to the big daddy of the space program, the United States? Joining me to talk about this is Ambassador Eric Garcetti, US Ambassador to India. Ambassador Garcetti, welcome to News 9.
Thank you. Great to be with you. A big fan.
And we are in Bengaluru here today.
Absolutely.
What brings you here? Is it the weather? It's cooler than
Delhi.
Delhi.
It is pretty hot in Delhi right now, so that's a good excuse, but it's unfortunately or fortunately business that brings me down here. And also just to see this incredible state and this really tech capital that is one of the great technology capitals of the world. And we're focused today on space. I got to go to ISRO headquarters, meet with Chairman Somanath, do a program with him here where we're promoting commercial space collaboration between Indians and Americans, because this amazing relationship that really knows no boundaries has suddenly focused its eyes on the heavens.
Eyes on the heavens, and that's a line from one of your videos that I saw recently, that viral video, that 3-minute and 45-second viral video of yours, where you spoke of a partnership between India and the United States from the seabed to the stars. Tell us more about this partnership. What's the next step in this partnership?
You know, Indians and Americans are such natural partners. I think our heads look at the world as two democracies in the same way. We're nations that don't want to project power, but we want a peaceful world. We do things not just for ourselves, but for other countries as well. And I think when it comes to space, we see this as a place for humanity to own, not any one country. But we both are aspirational countries. The American dream and the Indian dream, they're flip sides of the same coin. That it doesn't matter where you come from, how wealthy your parents were, what language you speak. It should be your dreams. And you know, everybody dreams when they look up at the stars. They really see, whether it's looking at the ocean and the horizon or up at the stars, those are the two moments human beings see what is possible. And we don't want that to be just abstract. We want to have concrete collaboration, which, by the way, we've had in space since 1963, when an American-made rocket launched from here in southern India, in Kerala, as the beginning of the Indian space program, to today, where we're talking about satellites and astronauts, we're talking about the moon, we're talking about beyond that. And I think when the US and India get together, as I've always said, it's not India plus the United States, it's India times the United States.
India times the United States. But you know, we were talking about the weather just a few minutes ago, and it's increasingly hot, it's getting hotter. The planet is heating up. It's not global warming, it's global heating, and from the Indian Ocean it appears it's global boiling. The temperatures are increasing. Tell us about this mission that you have, the NISAR program between ISRO and NASA, and what it plans to do about this big problem confronting all of humanity.
You know, it is the fight of our lives, climate change. I was the mayor of a great city, Los Angeles, where we felt hotter days than we'd ever experienced, where poor seniors who don't have air conditioning can sometimes get sick or even lose their lives. And here in India, it's the country with the most climate vulnerable people on the planet, over 700 million people who could face extreme hardship, even death, because of rising temperatures. So this is when the brilliance of this relationship comes together to try to solve this problem. And NISAR, which is NASA and ISRO, coming together to do an aperture radar satellite. And that's a fancy way of saying basically a satellite in the sky that is almost like a trip to the nurse's station. If a human being goes and we get our weight and our height, our blood pressure and our temperature, this satellite can do the same thing for planet Earth. It can assess the temperature of our oceans, the quality of the air, what's happening with volcanoes, the ice sheets, those vital signs that will tell us whether the Earth is healthy or not, and in doing so, where we can direct action to save our lives, to save our nations, and to save our planet. That will make history not just because of the relationship between our countries, but this will be data that the entire world can use. And what's brilliant about it is the equipment is made by both India and the United States. It'll be launched here in India, but part of it's being constructed back at Jet Propulsion Laboratories. So it's really a relationship of equals. Again, not US plus India, but a multiplicative relationship where it's US times India.
So where are we with the launch, the NISAR launch? We've been hearing 2024 as the launch window. Do we have a clearer date than that?
We absolutely expect it to happen this year. There's a couple more tweaks happening back in California. It should return here in a matter of weeks, and then it all depends on the launch window. So we'll rely on our friends here at ISRO to determine the best launch date, but we fully expect that to happen this year, and I plan to be there. It'll be one of the most exciting things I've ever witnessed.
Absolutely. And would you see this as one of the biggest India-US milestones in our relationship?
No
for the
question.
Last 75 years.
I mean, it may be one of the highest, literally, because it's out in the heavens, but you know, it's difficult to pick what is the biggest. We have record trade, record visas, record students, record military exercises. I mean, we're breaking record after record after record. The Prime Minister's state visit last year, the President's visit here for G20, they had 173 items that we're working on simultaneously, from culture and education, sports, defense, economic trade, agriculture, health. I was just at the beginning of this week in Pune, where we launched a new malaria vaccine together that the Serum Institute is making, American innovation, and it's headed to Africa, where one child dies every minute of malaria. So again, we don't just do this for ourselves, we do it for everyone. But I think this satellite will certainly reach new heights.
This satellite will certainly reach new heights, and the accuracy, I'm told, Ambassador Garcetti, is in centimeters. It's like literally an electron microscope hovering in orbit.
Yes, maybe a journalist and a diplomat don't know the technical expertise of how that gets done, but thank goodness we live in a country that has brilliant engineers, both in India and the United States, that can get down to that microscopic level. Because as we know, climate change sometimes is very obvious. It might be 5 degrees hotter than it was 10 years ago. But sometimes it's millimeters, centimeters of an ice sheet melting more quickly that threatens coastal communities. And the US and India isn't just interested in what we can do to stop climate change, but also to help populations adapt to it. For instance, our Coalition on Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, which India founded and we've co-chaired with India for the last 2 years, are preparing communities for those natural disasters that can come, for those man-made disasters that can come, so that people can survive and thrive after them.
Right. And you know, Ambassador, I'm a huge fan of science fiction. I just watched 2001 for the 100th time recently.
It's a great film.
It is probably one of the greatest movies ever made. There's a recurring trope in all of science fiction, which is of this common threat hurtling towards, Earth, which is a giant asteroid, or it's an alien race that's coming there. And I saw the one of our joint statements, the India-US joint statements, which said that the US and India intend to increase coordination on planetary defense to protect planet Earth and space assets from the impact of asteroids and near-Earth objects. It's very science fiction. Tell us more about this.
It's one of the facts of space, whether it's man-made objects now because there's so many satellites and even satellite fragments that are in the sky, all the way to comets, asteroids, and other what we call small planet objects. The US and India can do a lot, and I'm really proud that the United States Space Force recently came to an agreement with 2 companies here in India to look at what we can do for planetary defense. We're looking at ways that we can monitor those objects. And recently the Minor Planet Center, which is where we synthesize all this data, India became a part of that, so that we're fully partners. It doesn't matter whether that particle is hurtling somewhere towards, southern India or western United States. We should be defending the Earth as humanity, not as one nation or another nation. So we're very excited to have this partnership. And our Advanced Domains Dialogue is a place also where our defense forces are looking at making sure we can defend the Earth. And the signing of the Artemis Accords, this is very important for your viewers, is a real statement that defense should never be militarized. This should be a military-free arena where people don't look at space as one nation against another. But even in times of war, we see astronauts and cosmonauts in the same space in the International Space Station. It should be a place for humanity, and human beings, not for any one country over another.
Right, absolutely. And that brings me to my next question. That India has got huge ambitions in space. We've got, it's 40 years since we saw an astronaut in space, squadron leader Rakesh Sharma, and we plan to send 4 of our astronauts on our own rocket in a few months from now. We launched the first space tourist, paid his way, took off from the United States. But we're being told that there is going to be an Indian astronaut headed to the International Space Station in 2024. Can you tell us more about that?
Absolutely. During Prime Minister Modi's historic state visit, President Biden and Prime Minister Modi both came to an agreement on all sorts of space items, from NISAR to the Artemis Accords. Yes. But one of the things we offered was we would put an Indian astronaut into space this year to help him or her go to the International Space Station, and we're on track. Of course, NASA will finalize the details as to when. Those depend on flight availability, but we know the mission. India has selected the astronaut, and we can see that happen as early as later this year. So we're very excited to see that. Again, as an example that our training, our technology, and our goals are similar in space, and maybe one day an American astronaut will be on an Indian mission to space as well.
Absolutely, I look forward to that day. And what else can you tell us about this astronaut? Do you know the name of the astronaut?
I do, but I'll leave that to India. Actually, it was funny that Chair Somanath said that we have already shared that with the press, but I'll let Indian government share that, but we know who the person is. We are ready to train them. We're finalizing the commercial contract because it's a U.S. commercial carrier that will take that astronaut up, but we fully expect that training to happen later in the year, and hopefully the mission this year as well.
This year is just 6 months, so you're talking of a very short launch window.
We're ready to go, and obviously, India trains its astronauts so well already, so it's not taking somebody new, but it's a well-trained astronaut who just needs some of the technical knowledge to be the passenger to get up to the International Space Station.
Right, and as part of the Artemis Accords, now, do you see a future where India and the US could, jointly launch missions to the moon, to other planets, to Mars, perhaps even?
There's a Kannada saying, "Manasidare marga." Anything's possible. If we put our mind to it, I think literally the heavens are the limit, not the skies are the limit. Right. We can see the United States and India, for instance, when I was talking to the chairman of ISRO today, looking at ways to put a navigation system for the moon. Right. When you think about it, we have a navigation system for the Earth because of GPS, but the moon doesn't have that. So whether it's on the planet or from satellites around the planet, that's a place where the US and India can work together. A mission to the moon, we love hearing that India is going to be doing that. We certainly have that plan in the United States. Let's talk together about making sure those missions aren't independent, but are additive so that we can have something that's being built on the moon as a stage to get to Mars and beyond. It is the time, I think, we're entering the second golden age of space exploration, and no country can or should go it alone, and there's no more powerful partnership than the United States and India.
What does India bring to the table, Ambassador Garcetti, when it comes to the space programs? Is it the frugality of our missions? Chandrayaan 3 was $75 million, which is a little more than what Hollywood stars are paid for a movie.
And I love space exploration, and coming from Hollywood, I love movies, so both are good investments. But I think that we have the ability to, in the past it was cost. Yes. We see India really lower cost, but increasingly it's becoming a value. It's bang for the buck. It's more the ability not just to be the cheapest, but also to be the most robust. And I think soon it'll be innovation equal to the United States. We're looking at each other as equals now. When I look at technology across the board, and we have this critical emerging technologies initiative, space and defense is one part of it, telecommunications, of course our semiconductors, quantum, artificial intelligence. These 5 things that will define our future, already we're often seeing that it's not a one-way street. It's not just India saying, please, America, share some of your technology with us. It's us saying, hey, India, can we learn from you? Your digital public infrastructure has leapfrogged the world. We're seeing startups here answer the calls, for instance, Indus X, which is our defense partnership for startups. Recently, we challenged people to help with oil spills, and there was a Gujarat-based startup that won the competition to look using satellites from space at oil spills to quickly manage them and to ensure that our oceans are clean and free. So I think we will see this more and more, that the promise and the premise of India is not just a place where you can save dollars, but where you find brilliance, where you have a trained workforce of engineers unparalleled anywhere in the world. And again, you have dreamers. It's those values that we share. A lot of countries don't. They wait for their government permission. They live in more autocratic or dictatorial places. We're 2 great democracies that tell people, think freely, come up with innovation, and if you have a good idea, we'll support you.
Great. And what do you make of the burgeoning private sector, the Indian space private sector? How do you plan to engage with that? It's a very new, it's a baby, literally like the baby in your video.
Well, I think, yes, like the crying baby, but it's, I think, a smiling baby. And it's learning to crawl, and soon it will be walking. And after that, I think soon it will be running. It is an unstoppable force. And we already see great private sector startups in this space area that are helping American payloads get up, that are looking at manufacturing components. And I think really that focus, not just on the hardware and the software, but the systems. We need to not just have things that can measure. We have to think through what are the systems to measure when it comes to climate change or oceans. What are the agricultural applications when you see places that are stressed like California where I come from, or here in Karnataka or Punjab where the water table is quickly disappearing, and how do we help farmers from space better plant crops that won't degrade the water table? There are so many applications that I really see India as being a key innovator in really tying together hardware, software, and systems, and having the people to put those together. Oftentimes people think space is just something up there, distant, interesting, maybe even sexy to some, seeing how far we can get. It no longer is. Space is really about planet Earth as much as it is about the heavens. It's about increasing our quality of life today. And so I think the startup community here is really starting to accelerate. Sure, it's behind other places like the United States, but I think if we have this conversation 5 years from now, certainly 10 years from now, they'll be on equal footing.
Right. So coming back to what you said, very interesting point there, Ambassador, that the fact that space is actually looking earthwards and to see how we can help people on Earth, and NISAR is part of that. The data that NISAR collects, who will be the custodian of that data? Will it be available to all countries who want to use it?
Yeah, I think both India and the United States' plan is to share this data as freely as possible. Obviously, the countries will control that initially, but we want to make sure, somebody in Africa, a farmer in Africa, a scientist in South America, somebody in Europe, this is really human data. It is not Indian data. It is not American data. We just have the honor of being able to work together to get the data measurer up above planet Earth. But I think you're right. Space has always been about looking at the heavens. But once we got to space, it was an opportunity for us to see ourselves, to see what's wrong with our planet, but most of all to see what's beautiful of our planet and what we need to preserve and help and nurture and heal. And NISAR isn't just a technological breakthrough. I think it's a breakthrough of principles, of morality, of the way that two democracies believe in the equality of all human beings. We've had to fight for wars of independence in order to achieve that. That is the kind of post-colonial experience for both of our countries, that to spread that idea, it doesn't matter your last name. What matters is that you're a human being, and this planet Earth we have to all be stewards of.
Absolutely. And finally, you spoke about this very interesting concept of having a constellation of satellites around the moon. You just discussed it with ISRO Chairman Somnath. Tell us more about this. Is it still work in progress, or do you have something?
Yeah, I think it was a general point rather than a plan today, and it's not just for the US and India, but I think for all countries, to make sure nobody puts up a system that is just their system of navigating and using the geography of the moon. Something like the moon doesn't belong to any country, just as a continent like Antarctica has never. These are common to all of us, and maybe one day we'll learn to more than just us in the universe. It is our responsibility to make sure any progress we make together. The last place we need nationalism is in a place like the moon. I think we can be proud and patriotic. Certainly we are of America's accomplishments in space, but that's something we've always shared with the world. India too, when we saw the landing, I was in Delhi with a cabinet minister that day, and we stopped everything and saw it on the screen. And while it touched the soul of a nation, it captured the hearts of an entire world. And I think that is space at its best, when it, yes, is proudly patriotic, but it immediately transcends the national to truly become the global and beyond.